Hi everyone, I am live, I believe. It looks like I am. I'm going to give it a moment or two to see who's going to be joining me live today. Let's move my microphone a little bit closer. But I'm delighted to be here today for a short Q&A session about bone health, particularly in perimenopause. And if you've been following me at all recently, or over the last year or so, you'll know that bone health is something that has become very important to me and that I have become very passionate about talking about. So I'm just looking to see if I can... Every time I do this, it seems to be something different in the way that Facebook sets it all up. So I'm just trying to keep on top of it all and make sure that I am actually seeing anything that's going on. Okay, so I've had a couple of questions in from people, and I thought I'd start with those. If you are joining me live and you've got questions yourself, please do drop them in the comments and hopefully I will see them and be able to address those live. If not, I will obviously come back to you afterwards, but please feel free to do that. But I thought I'd start with a question that I've been asked quite a lot recently, which is, why is bone health such a big deal in perimenopause and beyond? Because the bottom line is it doesn't get talked about when we talk about perimenopause and menopause, and thank goodness there is a lot more conversation going on around these topics at the moment. But we don't often hear bones being discussed. So the reason it's such a big deal is that it's during that whole period of perimenopause and then post-menopause itself, when if our bodies are left, as women, if our bodies are left to their own devices, the dramatic changes we experience in hormone levels have a big impact on what happens with our bones. So let me explain that a bit more clearly. Everybody, whatever their gender, builds bone during their teens and their 20s, and then somewhere around the late 20s their bones tend to reach peak density, and from there on, again somewhere usually around mid-30s, the natural process is that rather than building density, our bones start to gradually decline. And this is all to do with the fact that our bones, like every cell in our body, are constantly repairing and restoring and rebuilding themselves. And at that sort of midpoint, well, earlier than midlife, mid-30s these days, isn't it? The process of rebuilding starts to slow so that bones are basically declining faster than they can rebuild. So that's completely natural, happens for all of us. When the estrogen levels in particular plummet during that period of perimenopause and particularly postmenopause, that whole process is exacerbated. So some women can literally lose up to 20% of bone density over a 10-year period around this time. Now, obviously, that's something that's been happening, and not everybody comes out with osteoporosis. So it all depends on how strong and dense your bones were at the beginning of this period of decline. But this is why taking note at this time in our 40s, our 50s, and if you haven't done already and you're beyond that age, then absolutely there's still time to work on it. But that's why this time is so important, and why I'm trying to get the message out so that people have the information to make the right choices for them. So a question that often comes up following on from that is, so how do I know if it's an issue for me? How do I know if this is something I need to worry about? And this is a really tricky one, because the fact is we don't know. There is no way of telling if your bones are at their optimum density or significantly lower. The only way we find that out is either by fracturing a bone and then being told that most people wouldn't have broken a bone under those conditions, which is what happened to me when I fell and managed to break both my wrists. And then that in itself, it often leads to a DEXA scan, which is a scan to measure the density of our bones. It's important to mention that the scan can only measure bone density, and that's not necessarily a direct correlation with strength, but there's basically no way to measure the strength of the bone other than by testing it until it breaks, which tends not to be a very popular option. So the bottom line is you probably have no idea whether your bones are absolutely fine or could become an issue. And that's why I'm really keen to get as many people as possible, and this is not just about women, this applies to men as well, actually starting to proactively do things that are supporting their bone health before and perhaps instead of discovering that there's a problem. So there are things that can make us give us a bit of an indication as to whether we might have a greater risk than some people. So as I say, being older inevitably brings greater risk of low bone density. Being female does, and that's because of this issue of the impact of declining hormone levels, which is one reason why HRT can be incredibly supportive in helping address that issue. On top of that, and this is why more women than men get diagnosed with osteoporosis, because we basically go into the decline a little sooner and then we go to decline much more rapidly. The decline in men's bone health, obviously I'm talking about averages here all the time, also happens, but it tends to be about 10 years or so later. I've just remembered, I forgot to say something really important at the beginning of this, despite writing it on a piece of paper in front of me. It's really important that you understand that I am not medically trained. I am not giving you medical advice. I am simply sharing some of the insights, the information that I've gathered in all the research that I've done since this became something that was very much a live issue for me. Okay, caveat added. So back to what I was saying. Age, gender definitely apply as risk factors. If you have a family history of osteoporotic fractures, if you know that other members of your family have broken bones through osteoporosis, or have that very distinctive, what's sometimes called a dowager's hump, that very deep curve at the top of the neck and the spine, which literally comes because the vertebrae in the spine are fracturing and becoming more and more compressed, and so the neck and the upper spine starts to bend over. If you can see that in your family history, it's a good reason to be particularly aware of this. If you're white or Asian, you have a higher likelihood statistically of getting osteoporosis, but that doesn't mean these are the only races that do encounter it. And if you're slight, and if you've generally been light in build, I mean, I'm quite a slight person, because weight bearing is one of the things that helps support bones. It actually stands to reason that the less weight you've been carrying throughout your life, the less work the bones have had to do. So if all of those things tick boxes for you, it's definitely worth thinking about this. And then there are some other factors that are not, these, I think of those as the unavoidable ones, the things that are just, they are what they are. The other things are more about the lifestyle that you've lived. So if you have had a generally sedentary lifestyle, so for example, for me as a teenager, I avoided games at school as much as I possibly could. I didn't really go to the gym when I was younger. In fact, I've always hated going to the gym, but that's another matter. And I had and have had a pretty sedentary career for 30 or so years now. So that's one thing. Another potential thing, if you have had, if you've used drugs including many prescription drugs that have a potential side effect of bone loss, that can have an impact. If you've experienced disordered eating, again, this connects to the body weight and the whole metabolism. And if you have been subject to very high levels of stress without particularly effective ways of managing them, and again, this is one of my own personal things that I think was a huge factor in my own ending up where I did with the diagnosis of osteoporosis. Any of these things can contribute and exacerbate or increase your risk of your bones becoming more fragile as you get older. And remember, when I say get older, we're talking 40s, 50s, as well as the decades later. Okay, so just having a quick check to see if anyone watching has dropped me a burning issue of their own. No, that's fine. In that case, I'm going to jump straight to the next one, which has been something that was a big question for me when I heard about this, and I know is something that many people immediately think, touching what I've just said, does this mean I'm going to have to start going to the gym and lifting weights? Now, don't get me wrong, doing that is a fantastic way to support your bones. It needs to be done, particularly if you do know that you have an issue and your bones are maybe not as strong or as dense as you would like them to be. It has to be done with somebody who knows how to support you in that. It's really important that your posture and your alignment is absolutely at optimal, so that when you take weight through the body, it's supporting the integrity of the structure and not pushing against it. But yes, weightlifting is fantastic if it's what you want to do. Now, as I said a few minutes ago, I've never enjoyed going to the gym. I have one 5 minutes walk from me, and I just, at the moment, at this point in my life, I still don't enjoy going to it. So there are other ways to do it. The thing that supports our bones throughout our life is bearing weight. So weight-bearing exercise of any kind will give your bones the conditions they need to grow and strengthen in whatever way they are able to do at this stage of your life. The flip side of that, if you spend your life sitting in a chair worrying that you're going to break a bone if you walk across the room, your bones will be getting weaker and weaker and less strong, less and less dense every day. So keep moving. Walking is weight-bearing exercise. Walk every day. Doesn't matter if it's a mile or 10 miles. Get out, get walking. The more you walk, the more confident you become in walking. Go around the block, go to the top of your nearest hill, whatever it is, keep walking on a daily basis. So that's really important. And then there are a whole load of other ways that we can build weight bearing into our daily routine, either through an exercise program or simply by just doing a little bit here and there during the day. And that's where the program that I discovered when I was doing my research and that I now teach really comes into its own. Bones for Life is a fantastic program that is all about using the weight and the dynamics of the body itself. There's no special equipment needed. You don't need to go to the gym. You can spend time on your mat every morning practicing it, or you can just drop 2 or 3 minutes here, 5 minutes there into the course of the day. There's a whole range of different movements, we call them processes in Bones for Life, and they work to help the body find that postural, that structural integrity, that alignment, which means that when we bring weight through the body, whether that's by walking, whether it's by doing, excuse me, slightly more energetic things, we're making the most of our body's existing structure and integrity. And as you may know if you've been following me, when I discovered this, I knew immediately that it was something I needed to do a lot more of. And as a result, I'm now teaching that instead of yoga, because The slow, mindful yoga that I'd been teaching for years and practicing was amazing. It transformed my life. I loved it. I still love it. But what I realized was it wasn't giving me enough of the weight-bearing movement that my bones need. And that's why I made this change. Anyone can build the Bones for Life practices into their life. And if you do want to go to the gym and lift weights, or are already doing it, this is a fantastic way of helping yourself get that optimum alignment so that when you do lift weights, whether they're little tiny 1 pound weights or something bigger, that you're doing so in a way that supports your structure and doesn't cause it to do any damage. Okay, just quickly checking on my phone to see if there's any comments or anyone with a final burning question. Okay, so I wanted to keep this short, so I'm going to finish with one last question, which is the overriding thing that I wanted to know when I was told that the results of my bone density scan, my DEXA scan, were not what one might have hoped. And that question is, what's the single best thing I can do to protect my bones? And this is going to sound like a flippant answer, but I am completely serious. The best thing you can do to prevent fracturing, breaking your bones is not to fall over. I'm not going to just leave it there. I am going to explain. Of course, it's obvious. But as I say, it's not unusual for people who receive a diagnosis of osteoporosis to get so frightened that they stop doing the things that allow their bones, their bodies to move. And that's not helpful. Yes, we need to be sensible. In my case, when I fell, it was because I tripped over the leg of a pair of trousers. I got rid of those trousers. I don't wear trousers that are longer than my legs anymore. That may sound weird, but I'm sure many of you know what I mean. I've noticed that when I walk down my stairs, I rest one hand on my on the handrail, which I never used to do. I don't cling onto it in terror, but I rest one hand there just in case I made a slight misstep. And those are little things that help me think about not falling over. More importantly, how do we not fall over? We become confident in our movements. Walking regularly enables you to walk more regularly. Start slowly, locally, if that's what you need to do, and build it up. And work on your balance. Little things can help enormously with our balance, our equilibrium. And the more balanced we are, the more grounded we are in our feet, the more we can stand and really feel ourselves in our bodies, the more confidence we have in our body's ability to take us through life in the way that we need it to. And back to posture. Alignment. If we spend our lives hunched up, our bodies, it literally changes the center of gravity in our body so that we are not firmly in our feet. Connecting to the ground, finding that sense of alignment, improving our balance through simple little exercises, all of these things enable us to walk more confidently. Walking helps our bones. And all of these things are things that I support now through the Bones for Life program. The different processes we do give fantastic ways of feeling into your body, connecting into the ground, improving your balance and equilibrium. But there are other things you can do as well. So, as I say, I wanted to just share with you some of the things I'd found around the issue of bone health at this mid-stage in life. And it is a mid-stage. Most of us are going to come through, I'd like to say all of us are going to come through perimenopause, through menopause, and have decades, sorry about the sound there, have decades of life ahead of us. Let's make the most of it by doing everything we can to support our body from the very center of our structure all the way out. So I'm going to just leave you with the thought that when you're thinking about your well-being, whatever routines and rituals you have in your life to make sure that you are living your best life, include awareness of your bones and find something that you know is helping you to find that way of being confident in your movements, grounded, balanced, working on your posture. And if you'd like to find out more about Bones for Life, then drop me a comment, a direct message, a DM. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching and have a lovely day. Take care.